There's Chip.
Chip, hey.
Hold on, let me get my video started. There we go.
Hey, Chip, it is awesome to see
Gosh,
you.
yeah, really.
It's great to see you guys too.
How's things?
You know, living the dream. This is exactly how I drew up 2020 when I was doing my strategic planning. How are you guys doing?
Well, similar actually, Chip. I mean, how could it be different? You know,
Yeah, exactly.
And Zach, what about you?
Hey, Neville, things are okay. Not bad. How about you?
Good. Yeah, surviving just about. You know.
Good to see you again, Zach.
You too, Shel. Thank you.
And Johnny, we can neither see nor hear you, but hello.
There he is.
That it is.
Hey there.
Hello.
Where are you calling in from, Johnny?
Calling from Brazil.
Brazil. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been there. I used to come to Brazil for a week every summer to do a class for a berge. Yeah.
Yeah. I heard about those courses before.
There's Lisa Graham.
Oh, we're going to get a somewhat different group today. That's
Yeah.
great.
Great. Of course, it's 6 p.m. here in the UK, so cheers. Have a beer. So cheers, everyone.
It's beer o'clock somewhere, right?
You can always drink in quarantine. It's like being on vacation.
Yeah.
I got a full-time job. I really can't.
I had one friend who said it's like airport rules. Time doesn't matter anymore. You
No.
can have a drink whenever.
Hello, Lisa.
Hello, how are you?
We're doing great.
Now I can see from your movement you've got a virtual background there because you're moving in and out with visibility.
Yes, I do. You don't want to see what's really behind
You're a bit faint.
that would be bad.
But we can hear you.
Yeah. It's one of the interesting things about Zoom and all this, people experimenting with what's behind you. So in my case, I've got my aspirational apartment behind me. And I've got an actual green screen, so I don't get the invisible moving in and out when I move. It's fun, you know, and people are creating all these things. I got this picture of Unsplash, a really good resource for high quality images. And there's a whole ton of these images designed. The creators have offered them up for free for Zoom backgrounds. So you can experiment with a lot. And Chip's got the great corporate one. I've got one of those, Chip, too, with logos, all that stuff. Like a sports, you know, the sports thing when they interview the footballers, they got all the sponsors' logos behind it, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's good fun.
Usually when I use this one, I set up my my backdrop because it doesn't work so well on top of the library that I actually have.
Right.
See, I also have a real green screen, and I could have a backdrop, but I'm fine with my office. I had a different poster there, and it's actually still there. It's under this one. But since I've started having Zoom conferences with the executives at work, having Jerry Garcia against a tie-dye background was probably less than advisable. So I spent $5.50 at a online site called All Posters and got the Vertigo poster, which.
Yeah. Has anyone tried videos as a background?
I want the Grateful Dead one, please.
Yeah.
You have to send me
Yeah,
that.
actually, a number of people where I work have been using video backgrounds. Almost all of them, it's the palm tree swaying in the breeze at the beach.
So let me try this one on you. I mean, this is fun, but it's quite hard work if you're in a conference with somebody. I mean, but it appeals to me, that kind of thing. We'll get back to that one. Oh, that's a different one. Hang on, let me go back to the other one. That one, that's it. Yeah, you can have fun with these things. So, welcome everyone. We've got, well, lots of things we could talk about, I think. Who's got something interesting to start off with, coronavirus related or not?
Well, one of the things that I've been reading more and more about lately is how do we go back to work after this? By all projections, the virus is going to be with us for another 18 months until a vaccine and a cure are found. And it's really a matter of flattening the curve. So even when we go back to work, it's going to be social distancing as the norm. You're going to see people in offices wearing gloves and masks, just people like me. That sounds like an interesting communication challenge to me, to say we're all coming back to normal, but it's a new normal.
Yeah, it is a new normal. I'm not sure the old normal will actually revert or evolve into a new normal. So you're talking about masks and gloves in the office. I'd say you're right, but I would say there's going to be less people in the office. And that's for a variety of reasons, not necessarily just the obvious one related to this emergency, but through the economic realities of after we've gone through this, there's going to be lots of businesses who will go to the wall no matter what's happening. Here in the UK, governments are offering billions in relief, directly paying employees 80% of their salaries, so they're furloughed, not laid off. That helps the unemployment figures. But nevertheless, economic realities will tell you that some firms won't survive. And so the new normal is going to be a pretty ugly place, I would say.
I wonder if, like I used to be having the big fancy office on Hay Street in DC or, whatever places in New York or London, that was a big selling point for businesses saying like, look, we have big success, we're big and strong. I wonder now if businesses are going to start talking about how flexible and nimble they are, that if they need to maybe work from home or they don't have an office or they have both a flexible policy, is that going to be considered more of a strength than maybe it was before?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, Zach. I mean, I think in my mind is also related to that is the talk, related to that nice office in a big city. Another element that has traditionally been a selling point to many is ease of access, transportation links, great roads if you drive to an office out of town office. Is that going to be the big deal anymore? Because even if a lot of people are still going to be working, but what's happening with people working from home, is this the start of some kind of big reset? In which case, will governments be looking more at, and indeed business themselves, but the infrastructure development is going to be more about networks and broadband and connectivity than adding extra lanes to a superhighway or whatever. It's going to evolve. Let's take a long time to get to that stage, of course, but look at the airlines, all those photos of planes at Heathrow, British Airways, I counted 60 airplanes parked up, big jets at Heathrow. Heathrow's closed one of the runways, only one working now because of the low volume. So those kinds of companies will have a knock-on effect on the manufacturers of airplanes if there's not the demand. So the notion of flying to meetings the way we used to do is also going to shift. So is that going to be part of the, the appeal or the unappeal? I'm not sure which, but I think we're looking at a major reset broadly. That's what it seems like to me. So what's it going to be like in Brazil, Johnny? Do you reckon similar picture?
We're still experiencing a lot of, it's a really weird experience right over here because our leading president, his words are even worse than what Trump had been sharing over in the US.
He's Trump on steroids, this guy, is he not? Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like that. So a lot of the actions are on the state level. The worst case has been in São Paulo, which is the most populous state in the country, where the governor has very actively announced, and we've been isolating, but the numbers are still growing. So, and there are still several parts of the country that are still being affected. So we don't know how long this will last. Simply because I think things really starting rolling around somewhere around mid-March. So we're really early still.
Okay.
Hey, look who's joining us.
Sally, hello.
Sally Getch.
Long time
How are you?
no see.
Pretty good. Oh, there I am.
It is awesome to see you.
Wonderful to see all of you.
Even though you're only 30 minutes away.
Yeah, well, might as well be across the ocean.
That's right.
In
Absolutely.
the current circumstances.
Sally, for those of you who don't know, has been listening to this show forever, and has actually created our website and maintains it, among many, many other things.
Yeah, lots of things, all the things.
A WordPress developer and the like. So
I'm also pretty interested in Fauci talked about how people shouldn't be shaking hands when we go back to work. I mean, that's, I think, a huge thing, particularly as communicators. You know, most of your communication actually comes through your body. And so shaking someone's hand has been an age-old way of connecting with someone. Can we replace that? Should we replace that? It's crazy to me.
yeah, I mean, when you consider, again, 18-month window for this virus to be sticking around, I've actually heard people say it's here to stay. It'll be like the flu, it'll be seasonal.
That's what
The
I
yes,
thought.
healthcare
although
system will
if
be
we
able
develop
to,
some immunity, it will not
right,
be
but
as
the healthcare
devastating
system
every
will be
time.
able to deal with it. But you're talking about behavior change, and what is communication all about at the end of the day? If we're not communicating in order to get people to either change or reinforce a behavior, why would anybody pay us? So it seems that's one of the things. In fact, I was looking at this article on Chief Executive Magazine about the return to the workplace. One of their recommendations is start re-engaging on that now. But you know, they said reassure employees that their safety remains a top priority. And yeah, I think that's where this message comes from is, you know, we're coming back to work, but you know, we can't come back to work the way we were before. And I think we have to hammer that home in every way we can think of in order to keep this from, you know, roaring right back again.
I mean, the handshake thing is one thing, but what about, you know, kissing, for instance, in France, Italy, Latin countries particularly? That's a common custom of greeting, and suddenly stopping that. I mean, you've probably seen images on TV of, you know, leaders and others when recently I'm talking about remembering at the last minute not to offer the hand for a handshake. It's a hard habit to drop. So that's a huge cultural shift, and I think in other countries you have, you know, in India and Pakistan, those kind of the two hands, and other parts of Southeast Asia, it's all very different. Although I think handshaking is probably the universal greeting, but there are other forms of this physical contact to signify a greeting to somebody. All that's got to shift, I guess. Big job.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a difference too between short term and long term. So,
Okay.
I think we'll see a lot more change in the short term when we end up going back to work at some point, hopefully this summer. You know, so that there will be a period of time until the vaccine comes around or whatever the next stage is, where I think people will be much more reluctant and will embrace those kinds of things. The question is really what happens after that, and do some of those habits become new habits that stick, or are they things that pass once people's fear goes away?
Right.
I suspect, I mean, like, kind of like when you're going to get on the subway and there's always a sign that says, you know, mind your step or something like that. There's going to have to be some kind of major posting or messaging about don't shake hands. Remember, don't shake hands, because as you said, Neville, it's ingrained in people just to put a hand out.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big effort.
Although it depends a little, I think, on how long the current restrictions go on, because, you know, we might be fairly well trained to stand apart from each other by the time we get back to work.
Mm-hmm.
For those who have you know, who didn't work at home to begin with.
Right. And, you know, hand washing is another one. You're going to have to continue to encourage that frequent hand washing. So I think we're going to see PSAs continue on this topic.
Yeah.
Sorry I'm late. Apologize.
No worries.
You're welcome. Where are you dialing in from, Gavin?
Where am I from?
Or where are you calling in from?
I'm coming in from California.
Okay. Welcome.
It's 10 in the morning. I just pretty much woke up. I ripped a quick like morning jerk, and then I remembered this class, and then I came right here. So I don't make sure I'm not too late.
It's not exactly a class, but
Oh, whatever. You know, support group.
Yeah, we're a support group. That's good. Yep. I like that.
It will be really interesting to watch once we're back, into how this will affect big events or trade shows.
Yeah.
All these meetings and congresses, because a bunch of them got canceled, and now we don't know what will happen in the next few months.
Well, that's an interesting one, Johnny, because many of those events are geared for physical connections, where, you know, big conference. In fact, I think it's some of the ones that my organization is involved in that go on for a week, like 3 to 4 days. And with all the things that happen, that's geared around people communicating face to face. And those are not happening at all anymore. Does that mean, and this is a question, I don't have the answer to this, is this the end of this? Is the virtual way of doing this going to be the only thing that we can do if physical contact is not possible anymore? I find that hard to imagine that we'll never be able to do it the old way. Unless we're all wrapped up in masks and all that kind of stuff. But it certainly would present a huge shift in how we connect and do business generally, wouldn't it?
One of the interesting things in this chief executive article, their second point is to manage the yearning for collaboration. I can read this. Hey, it sounds like an FIR episode where we read. After working from home for an extended period, employees will likely have a heightened desire to collaborate, craving increased face-to-face encounters with their coworkers. It'll be important to make that possible while at the same time enforcing some form of social distancing. There will be stresses on meeting room resource scheduling, and there will be a heightened need for availability of other collaborative spaces. People will have missed that part of the job, working collaboratively face-to-face with their coworkers. Space optimization will be critical. If you have meeting room applications, tightly manage them. And yeah, I think that's one of those things that we really have to start thinking about. I don't think we can wait for the call to go back to the office and then start thinking about this. I think when that call goes out, there needs to be a plan in place that addresses all of this stuff. Something I intend to raise with our management in the next couple of days.
Good thing we have like such a great president that responded so quick to the coronavirus efforts. Because if we left it to like Barack Obama, we would have just been probably dead at this point.
Hey, you know, Gavin, this isn't a political podcast, my friend. You might be in the wrong place. Yeah.
Oh no, I was just expressing my gratefulness.
Gotcha. Okay. In any case, opportunities for communicators there, I think, Shel. Who would lead that? Would the communicators lead that? Probably not. Would that be, they'd be the communicators, right? I mean, engaging employees, but the drive to what you've just said about bringing this to the forefront immediately needs to be led by who?
Oh, I think senior leadership, for sure,
okay.
In an organization. Because if they're not behind this, you know, if there's the whole say-do issue. If you know, the company is out there saying, wash your hands, maintain distance, wear masks, you know, wash your hands frequently, and you see the executives huddling, right? That's implicit permission to behave the same way. And that's problematic. So I think, you know, you have to have the leadership on board. I think you need to have HR on board, because people like HR business partners are going to be out in the field with the frontline folks spreading this message around. You know, the communicators, I think, are important for getting the message out. But this is a collaborative, cross-functional effort to make sure that people are interacting appropriately when we go back to work.
And this is a business risk. So if an organization is big enough to have a risk management function, like those people were at the table for a lot of things, they need to be at the table now too. That it just adds a level of thought to everything that has to be put in place.
Absolutely. I think if a company is large enough to have a risk manager, then you absolutely should be taking advantage of that. That should be somebody who's leading this. I was on a chat like this about a week and a half ago, nothing but risk management senior executives for large organizations. And you know, they're all over this. They're right on top of it. So I would definitely work with them. Chip, what are you hearing out of the agency world? You're muted.
Sorry about that. I was trying to use the space bar, but for some reason it didn't work to unmute me. In any case, look, I mean, agencies are obviously, most of them have lost a decent chunk of business, with the exception of those who are specializing in crisis. So most of them, that I'm talking to have lost anywhere between, 15 and 50% of their projected annual revenue. So it is a tough time for them. I think, most of them are trying to maintain as many employees as they can, particularly in places like the US and UK, where they've got, government programs to support, as I think Neville mentioned earlier, furloughing versus laying off. I am concerned that agencies may not move quickly enough to downsize, though, because you're tempted to keep people on because you've got this government support, but the reality is that revenue that you've lost isn't coming right back. It's going to take time. And so, I think that, if you're in the professional communication space, you need to be thinking about any government support as giving you a runway to make the structural decisions you need to make for the survival of your business, and not allow it to have you just put off those decisions, which I think is the instinct a lot have, because, it's uncomfortable to lay people off, and you want to try to do what's right for everybody here. It's a tough environment.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just referring to the UK briefly. What the government is doing is really quite extraordinary, particularly Conservative government, in paying employees directly by the government 80% of the salary they would have got before being furloughed, which means that the companies don't have to lay them off, so they're not unemployed. They are still on the payrolls, and there's questions already. Of course,